Okay, Mr. Palante.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Feldman. Just wanted to let everybody know that we did call our meeting to order at 6:07. We did the pledge of allegiance and roll call. We adjourned to executive session for a matter of employment history and negotiations. No action was taken, and we adjourned from executive session at 6:45, and here we are. So we have approval of agenda. Any comments on the agenda? We're voting on the minutes and everything next week, or on the agenda next week. Comments? Okay, minutes from previous meeting. Again, any comments? We'll be voting on them next week. Seeing none. Does anyone have any communications to share? Okay, no unfinished business. So that leads us to our superintendent report and presentations.
All right, thank you, Mr. Belanti. We have two brief presentations for the board tonight. Our first is our Sweet Home Counseling Plan. We have Mrs. Barilari here to present the counseling plan, which is in your board packet.
Good evening, Dr. Genestri and other members of the board. Thank you for having me. You may recall last year we presented an updated comprehensive school counseling plan. And recently on October 8th, our advisory council was able to come together this year to discuss whether or not we would make any recommended changes. So I wanted to just acknowledge the members that were present at the meeting: Ann Nowak, Sal Glorioso, Marissa Doria, Wendy Janukowski, Christine Hayter, Dr. Wilson. And we also welcomed Brandon Woods and Scott Harger to our meeting in October. As part of our meeting, we invited the various levels to just report out on any highlights, new information. So I just thought I would just take a quick moment of your time just to kind of highlight some of the things going on at each level. So the high school was talking mainly about a new initiative. It's a mandate from New York State, which is for students that are applying, getting ready to graduate and potentially going on to college. For all students, the state is asking that the school districts provide various opportunities and information around the FAFSA. And at the end of the year, if parents are not interested in filling that out, they have to sign a waiver. So this is something new for us that the high school counseling team is working on. The middle school group highlighted the work they are doing with the behavioral and emotional screening system, the BESS. They talked about, we did a pilot last year at 7th grade, and they were intending to go all in this year with grades 6 through 8. And one highlighted piece of information from the elementary team was around some really wonderful work that actually Mr. Polino led. And in this work, the team aligned Leader in Me social emotional lessons with the CASEL framework and put together a repository of lessons, if you will, that the teachers are able to use at the elementary level at different grade levels for their social emotional tier 1 learning. With all of this being said, there was only one minor tweak that's recommended to the counseling plan, and that came at the elementary level. The team had recommended switching a topic that was being taught between February and March, so it would be resilience followed by friendships and relationships. Any questions?
So you'll see that in your board packet, a very minor change, but we definitely wanted to get that in front of you tonight and thank Mrs. Barilari for being here. And if anybody has any questions, she's here.
Can I just add?
About resilience, if you can. What does that mean in terms of teaching resilience? Or what are we doing?
So there are obviously different age appropriate conversations that go on around the term resilience. So I think, you know, depending on what level you're talking at, you might not be using the actual term with kindergartners per se. But it is a concept that we, you know, are working on with our students on, you know, obviously not giving up. Things can be hard. We want to make sure that they have the tools to be able to persevere. And so those conversations are being had at various grade levels.
Believe it's a teachable skill. That's
I do believe that students deserve the opportunity to learn more about it. I can't, you know, teach something into a child. You know, they have to, you know, have those opportunities and want to, you know, learn it. But I do believe it is something that is important for our students to have conversation about.
right. Thank you.
Okay.
I thought you heard you start
Yes.
to say something.
Dr. Genestri, I just wanted to mention, Director Barilari, this has been a heavy lift. This is the year 2 of our plan. She worked really closely with our steering committee the previous year. It's a major component of goal 2 in our strategic plan, and it overlaps and ties in very nicely with the MTSS work in goal 3. So it's a major component, and it's definitely done very well with leading experts in the area and voices from across all stakeholder groups.
And I obviously want to give a full shout out to the counseling team. You know, they're the folks that are, you know, in working with the students day to day, doing an amazing job and an amazing work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.
And I know we are talking quite a bit internally about what the new New York Inspires initiative, including Portrait of a Graduate, means. And we want to start having conversations with the board now as we get into this work over the next few years. I would think in the next 2 years, we're going to be knee deep into this. In the next 5 years, we're going to we could see dramatic shifts in the way we in programming here at Sweet Home and in a lot of schools across the state. And Dr. Wilson and I attended a meeting at BOCES a couple weeks ago, which was really how BOCES is going to look and take somewhat of a regional approach to this work, but at the same time allowing districts to create alternative pathways for graduation. So I'm excited about this. I think it opens up the possibilities for our students and what we can learn. And we really want to start having conversations now with the board as we start making these shifts. So I've asked Dr. Wilson to do a presentation tonight.
So as I thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you the New York Inspires and Portrait of a Graduate update from New York State. This is a multi-year plan that will impact K-12 education and is centered around critical thinking, financial literacy, and new pathways to earn credit for students. So as we jump into this, I thought it would be good for us to know how we got to this point today. So to date, these are the things that have been happening across the state to bring us here to this point where we are actually starting to implement some of the elements. We're in phase 1, implementation of the Portrait of a Graduate and New York Inspires. So back in 2019, the Blue Ribbon Commission established committees and groups across the state. I was actually an associate superintendent at that point in Buffalo Public Schools and actually led one of these community forums in which we collected information that was centered and flowed back to the state. So I can attest to personally that there was a huge effort to gather input from across all stakeholders across the entire state. In 2020, 22, we know that we shifted into the pandemic, things went on pause, but then we jumped right back into it in 22, looking at completing that stakeholder work and digging deep into the Blue Ribbon Commission and presenting its findings. And you saw that report come through to the Board of Regents. The recommendation is centered around 4 transformations: to adopt the New York State Portrait of a Graduate, redefine credits and learning experiences, sunset development assessment requirements. We'll talk a little bit about that, or well, about each of these, and move to 1 high school diploma. In 2024, we're looking at New York Inspires really being established. That is the phased-in approach to launch the Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations through this multi-year approach. The flexibility that districts will have is given in this multi-year approach and directed at grade bands. So as we look at this work, we're looking at phase 1, phase 2, which is initial implementation, and phase 3, full implementation. Again, we are at phase 1 right now, which is the installation and really looking at what we currently have and identifying some things that we can move right now. Spring of 2025, the major life exemptions came into play. You heard about those. That was a big deal that was released just last school year. And then graduation measures communicated across the state, and that committee was established. And then now we're shifting into, you've seen much more around the definitions, or we're going to dig into the definitions of the portrait of a graduate. Next slide. Next slide. Sorry. All right, so the proposed timeline is spelled out here. And as I stated earlier, much of this, there's a lot of flexibilities that will be given to districts as they engage in this work, as we all engage in this work. So in 2025-26, our current year, the release details on the new credit requirements and phasing in 2020-27 cohort. Those are our current 7th graders. Right, so we're going to talk about cohorts in a minute and why that, those numbers are what they are. This is slowly being released. This is the climate education material that you've been hearing about. We're going to talk about that, personal finance education, and then the portrait of a graduate. As you shift throughout the years, you see that we eventually dig into in 2026-27, prioritize learning standards. We look at the release of the portrait of the graduate rubrics. So now we have the definitions. What are we doing with those definitions and how do they play out in how we graduate students? The rubrics and guidance will be coming in 2026-27. Financial literacy and climate education is required, and those requirements kick in that year. So that's next year, right? In school year 27-28, we will be at a point where we'll have 1 diploma. We'll be sunsetting assessment requirements. So sunsetting assessment requirements means it goes back to that a lot of local decision-making that Dr. Ginestri just mentioned. So Regents exams aren't exactly completely going away. The requirement to have them will go away. It will be a lot of choice will be left up to local districts to decide the pathways that work best for them. And in some cases, there could be still a Regents exam that will be administered to students. And that means that students will still have to take them here or there, depending on the pathways that each local district chooses. And then finalizing the rubrics and guidance to prioritize learning standards. As we dig into 28-29, we're going to highlight and disseminate best practices across the state. We already are engaging in a lot of that work, as Dr. Ginestri mentioned. A lot of the things that we engage in, we have opportunities to, across Erie One BOCES, connect with other districts and then connect across the state. Erie One BOCES is the center of our county. They bring back information from the state. And so a lot of sharing across the state. And you'll see a lot of that happening. And really, we should be in the full swing of it in 28-29. And then the fall of 29 and beyond, everything will be switched over. All students will be entered into the new phase of graduating in New York State. There'll be new transcripts, new proficiencies. The portrait of the graduate will be fully in place with cohort 2029. Those are all of our elementary babies, right? So that's all of our students who are sitting in elementary schools right now. And our new assessments will be aligned and prioritized according to the learning standards. So you've heard of next gen standards. That's not going away. This is how do we continue to expand this thinking around project-based learning. Next slide. So I said I was going to dig into cohorts to try, because you keep hearing me say cohorts, those are our current 7th graders. And what does that mean? So what does this look like for students? So I just laid out a multi-year rollout, but if I'm a student in schools in New York State right now, specifically in Sweet Home, what does that mean for me? So cohort 24 is our current 10th graders. They are our current 10th graders. Your cohort is identified by the year that you start 9th grade. So our 9th graders this year are cohort 2025. And the measures that the state holds every district accountable for 4-year graduation is the requirement to graduate within 4 years. That is the end of August, 4 years out from when they start high school in 9th grade. Now, we can predict a cohort beyond 9th grade, right? So we can say who our current 8th graders are and 7th graders and so on. So when I say cohorts of kids and I'm listing their the year, that is specifically talking about the year that they would be starting 9th grade. Okay, so cohort 2024 is our current 10th graders. Cohort 2025, of course, 9th graders, and cohort 2026 would be our current 8th graders. Their requirements, the things that they would be connected to and required to do in this whole transition would be tied to one graduation, one diploma, advanced designations as a seal of distinction. So it's not a separate diploma. It will be a seal, similar to our seal of civic readiness and seal of biliteracy. And then current credit requirements. They will keep the 22 credit requirement that we already have in place. They will also have diploma assessment requirements decoupled by fall of 2027. So the exams that we have currently that are tied to, or they typically feel like they're tied to a course, will be decoupled from that course. Because remember, the 22 credit requirement will remain in place while Regents exams become something we get to choose as a pathway as a district. As we move on to cohort 27 and 28, those are our current 7th graders and our current 6th graders. At that point, our students will be one diploma. They will have redefined seals and diploma, including advanced designation. So the advanced designation, again, will not be a separate diploma. There will be a new credit requirement by that point. So the 22 credits that we have as a requirement now, that requirement will shift. And the sunset of the diploma assessment requirements. So complete sunset of the state saying that a Regents exam is required, it will be up to the local district to make the determination based on the pathways for that district. And then cohorts 29 plus, those again are all of our elementary students. By the time they all reach high school, there will be one diploma, redefined seals and endorsements, including advanced designation, a statewide transcript at that point, because right now transcripts look differently depending on where you are, right? This will help us come to one big statewide transcript, and proficiencies in both learning standards and the portrait of the graduate. Remember, we said we were going to have those rubrics. So that is what it will feel like to students as they flow through this whole process. Next slide. So you've been hearing a lot about the portrait of the graduate, and this is actually a slide that we've used in a couple sessions. We just dug into this at our DEI committee meeting, in which we were unpacking the work that will flow into our strategic plan 2026 through 2029. And we were looking very closely, as you see on this slide, that we have the state's outline of the 6 areas that have been defined and clearly defined as part of the portrait of the graduate, pointing out that the culturally responsive curriculum framework is in the middle, and all of these characteristics surround that framework, and then they're clearly defined. So there are 6 there. We have 8 characteristics that are spelled out in our current strategic plan. So the work that we're engaging in across groups is to help people look at the connections that are there, and so that as we shift into this world of the 6 that the New York State has defined, and that is going to define high school graduation, that we understand that those 8 don't go away. We're just connecting them differently, right? So when you look at, for example, some of the items are the same, like global citizen can be found on both, right? And so the connection is there already for a couple of things, but we have to reflect on some things that maybe we need to make more of a connection on. So for example, reflective and future focused in the state definition could be aligned to dedicated to dreams, which is personally my favorite, and lifelong learning and growth mindset. So there's a couple of the Sweet Home characteristics that folks were calling out that could be very much connected to how the state is calling out this reflective and future focused. Next slide. Something that's been all over the news is this need to make sure that students understand personal finance at a much higher level, right? That we send all of our students here across New York State, off into the world, really strong and confident in that area. But climate education has also been identified as another key area. So these are two big major components that you see that are taking front row in this work, in that they come into play in 2026, next year, 27, that school year. That group of students will be required to meet the standards that are covered in these couple of areas. So recently, as Dr. Janestri mentioned, we continue to learn about the things that are coming out of the Blue Ribbon Commission and the Inspire work. And one thing that was evident in our last meeting is that these are not new courses that we're being asked to make requirements for students. These are curriculum additions. And so students will not need to take new courses, but the standards will be embedded into courses that may already exist. For example, the climate education may be connected to the biology or a general science course. Or the personal finance education, we have courses like financial algebra and career and financial management. Those standards could be covered in those courses. So it will not mean major changes right now to our course handbook in those areas, but make no mistake, that work, those standards will have to be embedded starting next year.
Dr. Wilson,
Yep.
are they going through all K through 12, or is it just high school level, or?
Great question. That's the next slide. You predicted it. All right. So to answer your question, this is K through 12. And, but the first phase does happen at the secondary level. So if you just took a line down the middle and look at the side for middle grades, grades 5 through 8, and then the high school grades 9 through 12, that's the grade band that's impacted the most upfront. Because you see the elementary grades come into effect in 2027, 28, and beyond, right? But immediately following this year, going into 26, 27, our secondary grade bands must have those standards met. Now, the state really calls out the grade bands in a way to help districts see that this offers a huge amount of flexibility, because what that means is students who are in cohort 2026 for personal finance, that's our current 8th graders, must complete those standards by the time they graduate, right? So they'll start 9th grade next year. The requirement kicks in next year, and they must have it completed before they graduate. So it gives districts a lot of flexibility to make sure they offer students what they need so that they are able to master those standards. Cohort 2027, those are our current 7th graders. The climate education kicks in for them. And then, so again, by the time they graduate from high school, the expectation is that they will meet those and master those standards. And so it offers a great amount of flexibility, and it also offers districts the opportunities to think about where's best to embed that work. So then when you look at the elementary grade bands, K-12, they come into play by 2027. So we don't have a lot of information on that rollout. The first big phase is this first rollout with our current 8th graders, who will be our 9th graders next year. Does that answer your question?
Pretty much. I'm just curious, how much, do we have enough of what they're expecting to get the standard to be able to develop those pieces for curriculum?
We definitely, so, and we're working closely with everyone in our area because we're all in the same boat. And so it is work that we have curriculum specialists that come in and work with each of our departments at the secondary level. So we have math, science, social studies in our core areas, and they are the experts in that they are in Albany, learning firsthand what are the changes, and then coming back and helping us work to embed them. So that work is continuous, and we will continue to make sure that all of our students are ready to master the standards by the requirement of their graduation. All right, next slide. So this just highlights a couple of items. You've heard me say that we work closely with Erie One BOCES. One of the 4 elements of the New York Inspires plan is to offer professional development and make sure that we are up to speed to make sure that every student is able to bridge the gap and master what is needed to be that student who is the image of the portrait of the graduate. And so you see just a couple of items there. I just took a couple snips. There's many. The portrait of the graduate implementation support. You heard me mention the core specialists that come in and work with us. We also participate in consortiums in which we collaborate across districts. I'm working with one tomorrow for math, and we have math experts that also do that work, and there are math experts from across the county included there. That's one example. The rollout of materials from the state. BOCES is an extension of the state, and so they disseminate information through BOCES to us, and so we get much of our information. This all came from work with our Erie One BOCES. And then support for the strategic plan, so on-site administrative leadership support. When we initially rolled out our first iteration of the strategic plan, we worked really closely with BOCES reps to collect information from the community, but then to also help develop what the community was saying through the committee. We are again partnered with them to help us with the extension of our strategic plan of 2026 to 2029. And so that's another arm. There are many layers to this. And the work will be continuous. There'll be opportunities across districts to share, and we are going to roll up our sleeves together. And that is the end. If there are any questions.
I have one, sorry. I think I know the answer to this, but the statewide transcript that's going to be required for the 2029 cohort, is that something that the state is going to create and give to us that we have to fill in? Or is that something that we have to present the material to the state and then the state would fill it in?
So I see that as being, and I'm going to answer it based on what I know from, and then Dr. Genester, you can chime in. I see it as a combination. There'll be a lot of local decisions that we will be able to make around what we have available, what we can offer to students as their pathways to graduation. A lot of that will be based on what our students need and want and what our community needs and want. So there are things that we would be offering, but then there's always going to be requirements from New York State that we have certain elements in there.
That's exactly how I would have answered it. But the shift is that we have more choice. And I think that's, while we'll probably have to get green lighted by New York State on a lot of these choices, we get to create the plans, we get to, work on the curriculum, we get to make these decisions, which is a monumental shift in 110 years of practice in New York State.
It is, yes.
It's exciting.
So this is kind of like the formula that they're doing with the new STEPS program, where they give guidance. We
Yes.
have local control, but yet we have to submit our plan to the state for approval.
Yes, and they will ask questions to
Yeah.
probe, questions to get us to think, questions to make sure that we are really thinking about best practice. That's what I know about STEPS, because we've also dabbled in that. And we are really going to take our time to make sure that we have the best plan laid out. And so since it's so new, that's where we are.
Thank you.
Hi.
So thank you for outlining all of this. This is the most concise review of this that I've seen so far, like all in one place.
Thank you.
So Regents diplomas have been around for a very long time. Since I was in school, since you were in school, they've been around for quite some time. As we know, things change and evolve. What would you say to parents, to families, to other educators that are looking at all of this and they get that sense of kind of unease or not being anchored by Regents exams or the specific type of diploma that we have taught to forever?
Mhm.
You know, there's uncertainty that comes with this, right? And there's, I'm sure, lots of conversation. You just showed me a piece of paper that had some back and forth on it, which makes sense to me, right? All of those points. So I think, you know, as educators, we've had those tests, those standardized tests forever. And there's lots of discussion and rhetoric and things that kind of revolve around that. And so there's sort of the idea of being sort of not anchored by that and moving into a new path, which is exciting. And I think it's going to be great if it's done well, which I know we're going to do a good job of it. But what would you say to people who are uneasy about a transition like this?
It has been such a huge part of our lives. We all grew up with Regents exams. To think about Regents exams not being at the center of graduation is a stretch. I can see that being a stretch for many people. But the thing that I think parents should rest assured in is that because so much is decided locally and that we really get to decide what's best for our students, the paths that we'll be able to lay out will be designed specifically to meet our students' needs and wants and their families' desires. So the opportunity to share your voice in this, that has been at the core of the work. You see, we started it, but then we came back to it right after the pandemic and then went back to it again. And so it's constantly something that New York State has been pushing, but it is also something that is a big part of who we are here in Sweet Home. So as we develop plans, community voice remains at the center of that. And so the community voice includes the students, it includes their parents, it includes business owners, it includes everyone. Administrators, board members, everyone. So with that in mind, I would hope that people continue to have an open mind about it, knowing that it is such a shift for everyone. But know that ultimately when we do all of that, we'll end up with the best plan for our students.
So I would encourage people to keep an open mind about that and to also recognize that the word Regents diploma only means something in New York State. Like,
Yeah.
Graduation requirements and diplomas are different state to state to state. Like, everybody is doing some iteration of this right now.
Mhm.
This is not just us, and by us, I mean like New York State picking something different. We are neck deep in the AI revolution, and we've talked about this, that there are jobs that exist today that will not exist tomorrow. There are kids in college right now that are training for a career that is not going to exist when they get done with their 4 years or their 7 years when they have their masters.
Right.
That is just the fact of that. And so I think this is probably the next step in like an evolutionary process to making sure that our kids are ready for whatever the world is going to hand them after high school.
And that's exciting.
And I would just like to comment on that. And I think what's been great about the board and the direction is that it has been forward thinking in that regard. And I think as we progress and we see how technology is going to change our world and evolve our economy, especially, this gives us the opportunity to adapt and adjust. And I have had a lot of conversations with Dr. Wilson about how we move forward with this, and we envision a process similar to how we built the strategic plan, but probably even wider than that, because you're talking about graduation pathways now that we can develop here at Sweet Home that suit our students and our community. And I think that's the exciting piece about it. So it's going to take all of us, board members, administrators, teachers, staff members, students, parents, community members, to build this moving forward. And that's why we want to start engaging the board in this conversation now, because it's going to be a community-wide effort to get it done and get it done the right way.
Okay. I did show Danielle something prior to your little spiel there. And it's two sides of this, the pros and cons, so to speak. Is it dumbing down, which I hear a lot, or is it just opening up to asking students to take a look at different aspects of where their life is heading to, different areas, finance or whatever. So it is, I'm trying to understand it, but again here, because I've been around for a little bit, is it just another Common Core? Is it another No Child Left Behind? And everybody says no to this. But 5 years from now, when we're struggling to see, are our students learning some basic things? Are we going to look and say, we need to change this? We need to revert back to things that we know have produced good results, good graduates, students ready for the future, so to speak. So I have a lot of concern about it. Okay, I don't know what a global citizen means. I don't know why we have to teach kids about climate. I don't know if that's coming from a political point of view, or is it coming from something out of Albany and state ed that they think these kids need to think a certain way. There's a lot of scary things in this for me. And by the way, what if the end game is all students graduate? What are we accomplishing? What are they graduating with? Do they have the foundations, the fundamentals that they should have to move on in life? So those are, again, it's all questionable for me at this point. And again, I think these are serious questions that need to be answered. And so as you move through this process, you're going to ask for some major change in a system that is surrounded by measurable results, right? And now it's going to come back to our district where we're saying, well, we're going to look at it this way, right? And what's the state going to say in the end? Oh, no, you need to still do it this way. So is that different than a region or some standardized testing? Again, I have a lot of questions. I'm sorry. I'm not a real fan of what they're trying to produce here, but I'll go along. I'm going to try to keep an open mind. And again, in the end, it's our students. You know, we're doing this, we as a board, we're making decisions that will impact our students. And again, it's the state again, pushing down some things they think, their blue ribbon things are the best way forward for our students. So I think we really seriously need to understand this and how we move forward with this. I remember talking with Scott Johnson about Common Core. Oh, no, it's not going to change. We're in this, it's going to stay. We're going to move on with this because this is the best thing. Well, again, it did change and it really isn't necessarily the best thing for all kids. So again, here, I don't mean to throw, well, maybe I am throwing water on the fire here.
No, it's an
But
important discussion.
But I really do, the discussion part of it is very important to me. So thank you. Yep.
So in thinking about growth, right? And thinking about, Ms. Anthon just mentioned students who are entering careers that didn't exist before. And now we have students who are in college studying for careers that may not exist when they graduate, right? Things were constantly changing and constantly growing.
Even faster
Education
today.
has to be an evolution. We have to continue to grow. So we can't stay in one place with standards. As we learn more about what our students need to go off into the world to be successful, we have to grow. We have to change. I would expect that we continue to grow and change as educators. And so as that work continues, I think the thing that may be a little scary for folks is that the timeline is there, but you don't see those pieces yet, right? So effective next year, you will see the rubrics that come along with the portrait of a graduate. That will start to give you that picture of what do we mean we're measuring students to graduate based on the portrait of a graduate? We haven't seen the rubrics yet, so once that material comes out, each piece that comes on board helps to paint the picture in a much clearer way so that it goes from foggy and hazy to clear. And as you back away, you start to see and understand how the plan will play out. I think everything is being done very thoughtfully. As you as I talked about the cohorts, the cohort that is first impacted would be our current 10th graders. Our 11th and 12th graders are well into high school and in the middle of finishing the 22 credits in 5 regents, the minimum requirement or beyond, and we're pushing them, of course, beyond. That is not changing for them because we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that students can accomplish it. Districts have the flexibility to make sure that they can meet the needs of the students in front of them. And we're really thinking through everything that's coming from our community. The work from the very beginning was we need to engage every stakeholder that will want to be a part of this. And so that work, I think, shows through the work that came out through the Blue Ribbon Commission. And then as we continue into this work, more and more pieces will become available and the picture will become more and more clear.
One thing I also want to say, because you're not wrong, right? There are initiatives that have come out nationwide that we look back on and we're like, okay, well, maybe it didn't work out, but we learned something and we can move the next step forward. It's a pendulum swing, education and just about any career field. You're going to have things that go one way and then you're like, that didn't work. Let's go back to the thing before. Nothing is ever going to be permanent. So think back to when you were in high school. So I'm going to think back to when I was in high school. And I will tell you that while I had a great experience and I had awesome teachers, that education did not really prepare me for, like, if I got that same education today, it would be lacking
Mhm.
because everything is different. Everything is so different. And so I think the goal is always going to be to try to stay one step ahead of that, but it's so hard because there's so many stakeholders and there's so many moving pieces. And like, yeah, I know how you feel about New York State, but like they're in it too, right? And so it's impossible to do something at the snap of the finger.
There is an accountability thing at some point, you know, who's held accountable for Common Core? Who's held accountable for No Child Left Behind? It's the kid. He's out in the workforce now. He's out in life. What did he benefit by any of that? Did he benefit at all?
But so I would just caution to not discredit the work that's been going on for almost 10 years with a lot of highly educated people, just because it's the buzzwords of climate education. There's also the personal finance piece. And I agree that kids need to learn these things. I learned climate in high school and in middle school when I was in school. I could tell you I didn't learn how to balance a checkbook, but these are, you used
That's
to,
the
but
thing.
that's
That's
what,
the
that's the
pendulum
point.
swing.
That's,
Right.
things are coming
Yep.
back because we found that kids need to know these things. People need to go into adulthood having some other tangible resources that they can back themselves up on.
So you're right. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, but again, it's like, to call it broad spectrum of things you would like children to learn, but you don't have any silos where the basic components of a public education, reading, writing, and arithmetic are lessened. And that's the risk, according to the stuff I'm reading.
It's
Again,
not, though. It's not.
I think
We
it's built
spent-
in.
We spent hours this morning at Willow Ridge and we were talking to Mr. Polino, the principal, and we were talking about standardized tests. We were talking about those assessments. And he was explaining to us that it is so hard to actually get those scores back from the state in any kind of timely fashion to do anything with them. And he's like, we can look at questions and see which kids are, you know, scoring which way on questions and say, okay, well, maybe that's a skill that we need to figure out. And he's like, and we can give those rote, you know, mathematical, like you have to learn, you know, these equations or you have to memorize this list of facts, but we're not actually always getting the opportunity to show kids how to use those things. So we have tools where we have like a list of like your multiplication tables or whatever written down. Why don't we start showing kids how to actually apply the knowledge that they're learning? And I feel like this is what it's at, what they're
So,
asking us
but-
to do.
But you're saying we don't do that.
But we do.
I do that.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Well, I'm
like
not disagreeing with
getting the
that.
data back from the tests in any kind of timely fashion to say, like, those kids will take the test in June. That cohort of kids has already moved on somewhere else. So
Okay.
they've got data that isn't even like really relevant to what they're doing. So I feel like,
So
as we're
this will
looking-
allow sooner or just the local
I think it'll-
assessment quicker.
yeah, it'll give like a more immediate gratification that, okay, we taught this and now the kids are actually putting it into practice. And that's the skill that we want to also be able to teach them in addition to your reading, writing, arithmetic.
Okay,
Take that and like do a thing with it.
that's again my point. As
All
long
of the
as core
applications,
is
all
still
the
there,
standards
and
coming
it's being,
together.
you
Yeah.
know,
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I-
we could like talk about this
No,
for hours,
Mhm.
but.
I just want to, couple clarification. So Regents is going away, but,
The requirement of Regents would be
okay, so
eventually.
the,
But
like,
still.
the final, when I was in high school, you know, you had your Regents exam. So are there going to be any, I guess, like finals that are going to be required, or is that going to be based on whatever the local standard for a course may or may not be. So that kids could have one class where it's project-based and another one where there's a final, kind of like when you go to college. And I understand in college it's different because every professor kind of just decides.
Mhm.
And then this other piece of that is, what role does the board have, if any? You know, because right now, like, our curriculum's kind of more or less decided. I mean, we have maybe a little wiggle room of adding or subtracting courses, but will the board have more influence on, we want to see more of something, or not necessarily under this?
So to go back to regents going away, it is our understanding the regents won't go away. They will still be available. It will be up to the local districts to determine which pathways they would have their students access. So there may be in one particular area that a particular district may say the regents exam is going to be the measure for that particular course, right? Or for that particular work. It really will be local decision that will drive that work. That's the way we understand it coming from the state. So they will be available. They will not be required by New York State. They will be designed through local decisions or required through local decisions. As far as the board, right now we have, take for example, the high school course handbook that outlines all of our coursework and gives you a high-level description of what the course actually focuses in on and what students will be expected to learn and master at the completion of the course. I believe that requirement will remain in place. That much of that work happens through committee work. The teachers who are day in and day out engaged in the work, working alongside administrators, getting feedback from students, and then those recommendations come to you through the course handbook. I don't know
But
if
these
Dr. Janestri-
pathways, like if the board said, again, I'm just thinking back when I was in high school, we had almost program, like you could have a focus on finance. You had kind of this core work, and then you could have a pathway towards finance. Other people had a pathway towards carpentry, or there were different pathways. Is that a piece of what we might be thinking about?
Yes.
And then,
I don't want to say majors, but I think that that's something that has been thrown around a little bit, where we're bringing kind of more of the college or university model into the high school model to prepare students for, I think the one thing that I'm going to be very cognizant of is, are we preparing students for life after Sweet Home in the proper way? So they can be successful at university and college, or be successful in the workforce. I'm not exactly sure, you know, we've debated for years if Regents exams is the way to measure that, because, you know, we do that first year of college, and you know, a lot of kids aren't successful after that first year. And so how are we properly preparing? I also think that, you know, technology is going to play this giant role. And are we preparing our kids, our students, to be able to adapt and adjust on a rapidly evolving environment that we're living in here? Because the technology is changing by the day. And so we're not learning programs anymore. We're learning what this program can do and how it can evolve into the next thing. So creative thinking, project-based learning, things that they would actually do at university or in the workforce, are things that we've got to discuss here. We got to do that work together.
Yes.
I believe strongly in the financial pathways. We don't do anything. I mean, you know, to Mrs. Battaglia's point, we're not even teaching how to write a check anymore. Like it just, and we are so behind in
Don't
financial
need one, you
literacy
just go like
that,
this.
you know, that we could use. I see two people at this table that we could tap into their expertise, so we can teach kids how to invest properly and not, you know, do the things that I did when I was a kid and blow through every dollar that I ever made, you know? So there's a lot there that we can do. And I think it's exciting because we have choice now. And that's the one thing Common Core did not give us,
No.
was choice.
Yes.
My
you
biggest
take-
concern is another mandate. coming down,
Exactly.
so.
I think we're removing the mandate.
Javon has a question.
So like, let's say we don't, like we choose not to, have have Regents exams after 2029? Like what will happen like with the students who took like all the Regents classes or like advanced Regents classes who would get like an advanced diploma with honors distinction or whatever? Like would that just like go away or there be like something different they will receive?
So if you're talking about beyond 2029, those students will engage in, it will be completely different for them. The credit requirement will be different as well as the Regents not being required, but determined by the local decision. It's a really good question. So you will be able to still get that advanced distinction, but it won't be a separate diploma. It would be a New York State diploma, but you would get that distinction. So think about the seal of civic our seals, our current seals right now, they go just beyond, they're not just passing exams. It's a combination of points to pass exams. You get a higher number of points for mastery on certain exams, but there's somewhat of a capstone project that is tied to that work. So now that you've mastered all this material throughout these courses, so take the seal of civic readiness, through all of the social studies courses, you've mastered these things. How do you apply it to being a global citizen? How do you help your community? And so you pick a project that you want to focus in on, and that is a part of the presentation. So it's that kind of thinking where it's a much higher level. It's taking everything that you're learning that might have gotten you through a Regents exam, but now can you apply it at the appropriate level instead of just regurgitating it on an exam, right? How do you use that material? And that's what our current seals are right now.
Oh, just one other thing I'd like to say is I hope that this allows us, and this is for more discussion down the road, but there are a lot of talented kids who aren't maybe necessarily or are struggling at passing a Regents particular course or something. And the most important thing in my view for a kid, students is to have hope.
Mhm.
And you put in front of them, this is it, and you have to pass it. And even though this particular subject really has nothing to, you could be a great at carpentry or at some technical skill, and
You have
to
test
have again a
anxiety.
pathway,
Yeah.
but then they lose hope because they're just like, well, I'm not going to pass. I can't get through this, and you're wasting talent. So what I'm hopeful for is that this will allow pathways, for kids that, for all kids in different sets of skill sets and talents, and that they can, take that further, outside of Sweet Home, whether it's, in the college or onto a career. And because we need a lot of different skills.
Yes.
And it's not just about passing exams and going to college, because, it's not for every kid.
And I believe that's at the core of the thinking behind this work.
So I want to piggyback on Mr. Coleman's thought. And I think this is where you were going with the AP classes. The AP classes offer a national exam
Mhm.
that gives college credits. And we offer college classes conjunction with NU and ECC. Where do those classes kind of fit into this structure? Because my son was part of that, and my daughter's a freshman, and she's leaning towards being in all those AP classes as well. So that, I guess is this what you were talking about, like
AP
those
classes,
AP exams? So those are national exams.
They won't
So-
go away, yes.
Yeah, so they would what?
They won't go
They
away.
won't go away. So we would still have to offer those classes for those students that wanted AP, APUSH and AP Calc with the option to take that test to get college accreditation, so to speak.
I
College
see
credits.
those fitting into the advanced designation category.
Okay.
Students who would be earning that level. I can see that playing in, going back to being very similar to like our current seals.
Okay.
They come up as points that get you closer to that advanced designation. Will that be how it plays out as points? I'm not sure, but I see them tying into the advanced designation.
Okay.
AP exams, dual enrolled courses and credits, are international. And so students can get them and apply them, many places. And so definitely, I don't see those going away. They are not bound by New York State rules and regulations. Students across the country take them, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Just a couple more updates. Our accountability data is starting to trickle out of New York State. I'm happy to report that Sweet Home has achieved local support and improvement LSI status in all categories and subgroups for the 25-26 school year. It's the highest rating you can achieve, and actually we've moved up in a couple categories. I know that chart on there is hard to read, but there's a lot of subgroup categories that are listed on there, and we were on a watch list for a couple of them, and we have moved off the watch list and are now on LSI for every subgroup in accountability across the district, which means across all buildings and programs in the district. So we're going to continue to update the board on our accountability and achievement levels as this starts to come out of New York State, but wanted to start here and let you know that we are LSI in all categories. Of course, we are a week away from our capital project vote on December 16th, 2025. We're asking all members of our community to come out and vote. We have one more town hall meeting that is tomorrow night at the middle school at 6:30 p.m. I put the project breakdown on here. We've done one town hall. We're going to do our second one tomorrow night and present. We invite our entire school community to come out and hear more about the project, the two propositions, Proposition 1 and Proposition 2. It is a $90.5 million capital project that promises to transform our buildings, especially at the elementary level that need the space to operate it's for services, but also need updating and a lot of maintenance items as well at all levels in the district. And then finally, it'll cap off, we're, like I said, a week away in Virgil's Community Center, December 16th, 2026, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Very similar to what a May budget vote would look like. It'll be here. We're excited. People will see, our voters will see two propositions on the ballot and broken down. We've published on our socials what the ballot will look like. We've been everywhere trying to get the message out. Our community will see another postcard coming in the mail any day now as well. But I've also included for anybody that wants to go to the website, the YouTube video that we published a couple of weeks ago that outlines the need for the improvements that we're asking our community to vote on. So we're very excited for the 16th. We're ready to go. We've been meeting with our architects and construction managers and then trying to get the timelines together of the scope of the work. A lot needs to be done, a lot of improvements in place, but it all starts on December 16th, and then we can move forward from there. Please vote. Please vote. Just wanted to publish again, the Sweet Home Music concert season is in full swing. Please come out and see a concert. We got one going on as we speak at the middle school. We have one here tomorrow night at the high school. Maybe all schools are represented, and we hope to see you here or at one of our buildings for a concert. Please attend. They are awesome events. And we're super proud of our music department. Thank our music teachers for all the work they do to prepare our students for these concerts. And if you haven't been to one, I highly recommend it. That's what I have for tonight.
No questions?
All right. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Upcoming events. Obviously, Dr. Genestri just highlighted the music shows. We have a lot of elementary holiday shopping events, Merry Moose, Winter Wonderland, things like that. Remember, Friday elementary parent-teacher conferences. There is no school UPK to grade 5. And again, to reiterate, because the district vote on the capital project is next Tuesday, our voting session is next Monday, December 15th. So just remember that. And then we have a couple other meetings. DEI meeting, Dollars for Scholars meeting, and then our 2-week winter recess. So that's our upcoming events. Okay, that leads us to our first open session per Board Policy 1510. The open session is for topics related to tonight's agenda. Is there anyone interested in speaking? Okay, seeing no takers, we will move on to new business. We will be voting on the new business next week on Monday night. We have our special education classes and placements. Again, Mary Ann did say she's getting through them. So I'm sure she will be ready for next Monday night. I'm still working on some of them as well. We have our monthly financial reports. Any questions or comments on those? Okay, our comprehensive school counseling plan, which we had that presentation earlier, that is the entire plan is in our board packet. Any questions on that? Okay, our high school course planning guide, which is policy 8110. Again, that is in our course in our board packet. Any questions or comments on that?
Just one.
Yes.
I've rolled through it. I didn't see anything that was an obvious change. Is there any changes that we need to know about? Any classes?
Not that I'm
No,
aware of.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
sure. Thank you.
okay. Request for proposal for driver education. This is to allow Uplands Driving Academy to do driver's ed during the summer, correct?
It's for the spring
For the spring.
session this year and all of next year.
And all of next year. The price is $879 per student, and this, we used to do AAA, correct? Is it the same type of policy where Sweet Home students have first priority? to
That's
it?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Is that used to be paid at one time by the school district? Is it still?
Incorrect. It used to be a course that when I was here 100 years ago, it was a course that was offered for credit. From that standpoint, taught by our teachers and our instructors. But it is no longer that way. We hire out to do a classroom portion as well as the in-car portion.
Okay.
Any
Pretty
other-
stiff price, isn't it?
It's a significant price, yes. But as somebody that's put 2 teenagers through driving lessons, it's on par.
It was $2 when I was in high school for sure.
That's why you
So
work overtime.
embarrassing.
right?
Something like that, Mr. Ravenel.
Okay. All right.
Next up is our HELPS program resolution. HELPS is the hiring for emergency limited placement statewide program. This is in conjunction with the civil service exam. And I guess for lack of civil service exams being offered, it allows us to assist in our hiring practices
Yes.
while we're waiting for the civil service exams.
First, am I understanding this right? Those people that get hired will not have to score top 3 in an exam or even take an exam?
I can't, I don't, this is something that Dr. Shaibi has dealt with, but my understanding is that there are folks that have taken exams and rather than waiting for scores to come in, that they can achieve permanent status. I can't speak to is whether or not it would preclude them from taking exams in the future. I
It
don't
also-
know enough about it.
It also allows us to take current employees that haven't had the exam yet and make them permanent while we wait.
Who are waiting for
Or
exams.
waiting
There
for
are,
exams.
there are a number of employees that are placed in a provisional situation where they're waiting for tests. And then rather than administer the tests, if we feel as though that their performance has been satisfactory or beyond satisfactory, we could hire them at permanent status.
And then we don't lose them after the tests.
Okay.
Take that risk.
That's what I was kind of getting out of, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, I know going forward, I don't know how that impacts tests and things along those lines, but for the time being, that's how I understand it.
Do we know how long this is going to happen for?
No.
Okay, it's just there for now.
Yes.
hopefully for a long
That would be nice. Someone the same battle you guys
time.
did.
Yeah, it's a process, and I will say that.
Yeah, thank you.
And then, letter G is an acceptance of a donation. The Fisher family would like to donate, $100,000 to Sweet Home High School for the specific purpose of constructing and outfitting a new multimedia classroom.
So
We've been, the media classes point of view, I just want to say they've been, our two teachers have done an outstanding job, and those classes are full here. We're teaching high-level media studies, here at Sweet Home. And this will allow them to have the proper space to teach those classes. We're really excited about it. We've deemed the front, hallway, that new lounge that was built after the renovation. There's really two senior lounges now. We only need one. And so that one in the front hallway that has the SH on the doors, we're deeming that space as a perfect spot for a new media center. So, and it'll be a showcase room so we're appreciative of the donation. We got more information coming in from the family as it moves forward, but, it's exciting, super exciting. I want to thank John for leading the efforts on this, and sometimes all you gotta do is pick up the phone and
You
happened.
were in the right place at the right time, which is great. The family's been very, for those that don't know, Mrs. Fisher was a technology teacher here at Sweet Home in the early to late 70s to early to mid 80s. And upon the passing of her husband, she and her children wanted to give back, and Sweet Home made such an impact on her that they wanted to give back to Sweet Home. So they were very interested in doing something in the realm of technology. And after many conversations with many family members, this is where we landed. So.
Any questions on our new business? Okay, that leads us to open session number 2. Policy 1510. Would anyone like to address the board? You do have 3 minutes. Please state your name, address, and relationship to Sweet Home. Seeing no takers, we will move on to personnel. We will be voting on these personnel appointments next week. We have teaching and administrative, some retirements, some encumbered appointments, continuing activities, leave of absences, reinstatements, some co-curricular activity placements and interscholastic activity placements. And then service, again, we have some retirements, resignations, regular appointments, leave of absences, and reinstatements. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, at this time, can I have a motion for and a second to adjourn into an executive session to discuss current litigation where we will not be returning. This will end our general session portion of the meeting.
Still move?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.